You see them online, real estate entrepreneurs. But how are they doing it? And what are they doing different? We've got the answers. This is the Real Estate Block. Interviewing real estate entrepreneurs doing consistent real estate deals. If you want to be a real estate entrepreneur or you're already in the business, we've got on the pros that give the secrets and strategies to make it happen. This is the Real Estate Block, and this is your host, Aaron Gaunt.
All right. Welcome to the Real Estate Block podcast, where the value given during this show will help you find consistent real estate deals, where we talk everything real estate. We talk to real estate entrepreneurs doing deals month after month. We'll be taking a deep dive into our guest team, marketing strategies, systems, and processes to see how they've built a machine that produces consistent deal flow. Today, I have Nick, one of my good buddies on the show here. Nick, tell us who you are, and then how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, man. Well, first off, thanks for having me on the podcast. Excited to be here. So first off, my first name's Nick, last name Ramirez. Co-own our company, Authentic Cash Buyers, with my business partner, Adrian Hernandez. Crazy story how I got in this business. Started this business almost 7 years ago. So 6 years to the date exactly. Got my license November 8th. I can remember because I just love talking about it. 2016. So I was just kind of going through the motion. I graduated high school, was in my first full year in community college. So I wasn't the kid that went away to college. I was the more shy, behind the closed doors, wanted to stay at home, but I knew I had something and a passion to drive into an opportunity, a business. But at the same time, my parents went to school. My stepdad's a doctor, my mom's a nurse, my dad's insurance. So they all went to school, probably had some sort of education background. So they believed in me going to school. So when I started that, I was going through the motion and figuring out what is going to be a good opportunity for me to actually go and figure out my path. And it kind of goes back to when my parents had their divorce back in 2009. They were in the midst of losing their home, going through a short sale, and they were actually about to pretty much get the home on the market. And thankfully, before it did not go to foreclosure, his agent was able to sell the property. And back in 2009, that's when the market just had tanked. And so my parents had gone through a lot of financial stress, and seeing that at 13 years old for me was a big eye opener. And I actually got a chance to meet that real estate broker who helped my parents out and kind of saved them from that financial catastrophe, I would call. And so got a chance to sit down with him back in 2016, kind of learned from him. I would say kind of, because I was only with them for maybe 30, 45 days, realized we weren't a great fit. But what I took from the nugget of him was just learning more about the business, becoming a sponge. And that's what he kept telling me, be a sponge, be a sponge, be a sponge. So after I got my license, which was a few months later, I met my broker at the time, who's still a great friend to this day. He's a big developer in LA. And, we got into doing foreclosures. We built a company called the Help Program, which we would modify loans. We did negotiations with banks, but short sales were like a big thing we were doing between 2016 and 2018. So in that 2-year stint, we helped about 50 homeowners actually save their home from foreclosure, and we did loan modifications. So in that time, it was us more giving, because we wouldn't make actual dollars on those deals. We said, here are the options. You either going to choose to sell the property, we can help negotiate the deal with the bank to help save your home, or we can figure something out on the back end. If you don't want to sell now, at least think of us down the road. And a lot of them went straight to the shot. We have to save our home. If we have to sell, we will. But at this point, if we have enough equity in this home, that's what we're going to try and do, is save the home. And so we did a lot of those. I mean, the first year, like I said, over 50 of those, we were able to help serve the families and help save their home from going to foreclosure. And it really just showed me how much of an opportunity we can go into kind of growing the business. So that's where kind of like my real estate journey started, was getting into foreclosures, working with my real estate developer to find off-market properties. And we were actually wholesaling at the time without knowing, because that led into about a year and a half after that. It was really going in and building that wholesale business.
No, that's fantastic. And that's something I think we all know about you, is that you definitely have a go-giver, caring heart. So that when you were dealing with all these pre-foreclosures and you an agent first, and then you just say that you were, because again, this show's not just about wholesaling, right? I know that's kind of what we talk about a lot on off air, but how did you get into this other industry that wasn't necessarily retail?
Yeah, so I think there's just opportunities like when opportunity meets preparation or preparation meets opportunity. I think at that time I was still in school, and so school never left my side. So I never quit school. I was going in the motion. I was still going every single day to school. So I'd go to school like 3 days a week, and the other 4 days I'd still be working in real estate. And when I had met my broker at that time, I was working for a lending institution. And so they said, Nick, you're in a call center. You're one of the top callers here. What, has you thinking about getting into actual real estate and getting your license? And so when I got my license, that's who they referred me to. And lo and behold, he had been wholesaling, flipping, doing the loan modifications. And so that's kind of what got me into that pathway of like investments, off market, outsourcing and finding deals versus just kind of being the regular real estate agent, helping buyers and sellers, which we did. And I did about maybe 4 or 5 transactions that year that I can physically actually remember doing.
Okay.
Going to listing appointments, working with buyers, doing the consultations. But I realized my heart wasn't into that side of the business. It was more on the side of actually helping as many homeowners we can help save their home. And if they weren't ready to sell, we'd either give them an offer to purchase it or we'd help them list it. So I think I'd always been in the one-stop shop business of helping homeowners with different opportunities and giving them, here's a blanket of opportunities. Which one is going to be best for you? Because in the beginning, we're all like money hungry. We're all commission bred, trying to get a deal done. I feel like when I started, it was just more of the go-giver. And that's how my friend to this day, who's still a broker and developer, he'd always just have this calm, like serene personality, which you wouldn't think from an investor. Like this guy can sit down and just have a great conversation, but lay out the options. And so that's kind of how I kind of was driven into that pathway of just like, here's an opportunity, here's what we can lay out and kind of make this work for everybody. And that's kind of how it started.
No, I love that. That's something that actually we've, and I found out that it's working in this market now. And it's a different approach that I've taken. And it's, so when I get a seller on the phone, I say, hey, here at Seller's New Day, we have a few options that we would love to present to you. I literally present all the options, and then it's their choice by picking the option, and you're able to have more of a better conversation, because I'm reading a great book right now, rereading it, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? And by having it make, them be, their choice, man, the conversation goes way better. And then the second thing I want to bring up is, how did you find those deals at that time?
At that time, cold calling. They
Really?
gave me a list. I was cold calling on Mojo. I door knocked a ton. So a kid that grew up in Orange County, but grew up a ton in Gardena, where my parents grew up, I would always be door knocking. I'd be that kid. Literally, I should show you a picture, like in my whole suit, going door knocking, trying to find deals. And we would still find the ones that were the tweaker blinds, the blue tarped roofs, the overgrown weeds. Like that's what we were targeting, because those were homes that were obviously in foreclosure, that needed our help, needed our assistance. And at that time, that's how it was. It was just cold calling. So like I'd be doing 50 to 70 actual contacts per day. That was like the minimum standard. And so I know people have a tough time trying to hit 20 or even 15 contacts. Sure, I'd probably make, 100 plus dials. I would even more than that, I would say, per day. But that's what I did for the first, 4 years in the business of just straight cold calling, because that's kind of all I knew, because I didn't have the money at the time or resources to do the mailers, do the PPC, do all the other marketing channels that we do now today. And I think that's kind of what people think in real estate is just knowing to cold call, but there's so many different avenues. And so we did that, a ton of in-person appointments. That was like, I think what got my confidence in this business to build up was meeting, going belly to belly. And a lot of people kind of stray away from that. But I think, like you were saying, it's a better conversation when you can lay out the options in person and you're going over it. And that's what we did. And those conversations we had were a little bit more sometimes unique and difficult, because they're in foreclosure. So it's an awkward conversation, but that's where you build that trust and comfort.
No, I love that. Now, was this, were you working for your broker at the time or was this by yourself?
I was working for my broker. Yeah.
Okay. And was he the one who kind of led you to cold call and door knock? Did he give you what did that look like? Did he give you like a script and map and say, all right, go out for the day, hit these houses?
Yeah. So the days I wasn't in school, I was in the office doing a role play every morning, 8 to 8:30. I remember I'd be there till like 6 or 7. So it'd almost be like 12-hour days that we'd be there. And so he'd kind of build out a schedule for me, kind of like what we did. So from like 9 to 11 was just cold calling, but then from 8 to 8:30 was role play. He'd give me a whole script. And then if we wanted to go out on the field, he gave me a door knocking script. But I was mainly better on the phones than I was in person. So my goal was just to get at least an appointment every single day. So if I could lock in an appointment or lock in a contract, we would set that appointment or send out that DocuSign to go and figure out, all right, are we figuring out to do loan modification? Are we going to go through the process of helping them list the home? Or are we going to provide an offer? And so I wasn't the one sending the offers out because I was so new and I just got my license that November in 2016. But throughout that time, just cold calling every day. I mean, we'll probably get into it. It took me 11 months to get my first deal.
Oh, nice.
We literally, 11 months.
Well, let's go right into that. Tell us about your first deal.
Well, I'm pulling up a picture because I just found this literally like a week or two ago when I got my first commission check, dude. It was like a $10,000 check. And right here, dude. Oh my gosh.
There you go. And how old were you?
This was 2017, August 2017. So that was 5 years ago. I was 21 years old.
Wow.
So getting a $10,000 check. And I was like, Mom, I'm going to quit school. Like I'm in my year and a half in OCC. Like I'm good. She goes, no, you can finish. You can get your degree. You're a year and a half in. Who knew I'd be 3 years later, still in school, going through that process. But long story short, I had the address. 904 Cerritos Avenue, Long Beach, 90813. Very, very first deal I ever did. Met them in person. It was a cold call. We went through the whole process. They were trying to help them save their home. They literally had no equity in the deal. So we actually helped them pay off some debt that created a little bit of equity for them to walk away with. I think they made like maybe 10 or 12 grand, but that was like their saving grace. And so not only were we able to help them list the property, we actually ended up selling it to an investor who then flipped it maybe like 10, 12 months later. They held it for a long time out there. Wow. But they were still able to make money. But I remember getting that contract. Wow, that listing actually we started that process in November and then sold it in like August. So it was like almost like 10, 11 months process of trying to get that whole thing because we were negotiating with the bank to try and save it, but they realized it was not going to work out. And it was just an eye-opener to see how we can figure out what option was going to work for them and getting that process started from where it was day one to like, oh my gosh, almost a year later. It was like, wow, like if people can stick in one process and one time frame to get one deal done, I think in between that, I might have done another couple deals. I think my first I did 4 deals. They were in between, but that one was like the very first one that like got my confidence up, that built up, that was like, you know what, I can do this. I know my next deals aren't going to take 11 months or else who can survive in this business? But that was just like, wow, I can do this. Like my first deal.
That's awesome. Yeah. We never forget our first deal. And the cool thing is you did have the broker there. Now, what kind of deal was that? Was that because it doesn't sound like it was a retail deal. Was that a fix and flip? Was it wholesale? Was it a creative deal? What did that look? What was that?
Yeah. So it was a listing. It was the home was a fixer. It needed a lot of work. So we ended up listing that on the market. And then obviously we got offers and it was from an investor, but we realized now looking back, it could have been a wholesale deal, but that wasn't the approach. The approach really was helping them save the home. And so they wouldn't have to move. But when they were talking with their family and friends, they realized that was the better transition for them and the better strategy because they just couldn't afford the home no more. And the property had gotten actually passed down from their mother. So it was the reason why it took a long time was because it also went through probate. So I was dealing with the home in foreclosure, dealing with the home that was negative equity, but we helped them pay off some debt to bring them positive.
Nice.
Going through probate. And the fact that we had to extend multiple sale dates, that's why it took 11 months. So I feel like I got everything in my very first deal. And so you could imagine like all that experience in 11 months on one deal. I was like, man, I can do any deal. I have that much confidence and that much growth in that one deal. And to this day, like I think she had reached out to me like a year ago and say, hey, Merry Christmas. I was like, oh my gosh, her name is Cassandra. I'll never forget her. Cassandra is like a blessing in disguise. And she always says I was her angel in saving grace, but really it was for both of us, you know, the experience and all the time. And that, you know, it comes back down to serving. You know, we all want to make a buck, which is the best thing, but also it's the servants behind it to help these sellers, because sometimes they don't see what we see. We don't see what they see. And so it was just a big eye opener for my very first deal. And I was like, wow, God, you're putting me through a windstorm, like a crazy snowstorm, but however we can help them get to the finish line, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
That's awesome, man. I guess from there, our first deals, I mean, what have we always seen is the person who gets the easiest deal first, it's like you don't see them in the business, you know, the next year, right?
Yeah.
My first deal as well was just a terrible deal that it took us a lot to get to the finish line. But I was like, if we get through that one, I think it was literally our hardest deal since, and now we've done a lot, right? Yeah. So that being said, so from your first deal to doing a couple deals here and there, how did you break through the struggle of doing deals here and there to now consistent deal? Because I mean, we see you on social media, we see you crushing it with your partner and your team. You built such an amazing platform. You built such an amazing team. You're still giving to the seller and to your team, and it's just a tremendous value to people who want to get in this industry. Now, how did you break from where you were then to where you are now?
It's such a great question, because as I was, you know, figuring out like what that breakthrough was, it led me back to like my time as a kid growing up in sports. I think having that disciplined aspect and that like mentality of like not giving up, going that one more is what Ed Milet preaches. It's like, it's the truth, is that I think having that discipline aspect and having that scheduled time frame was that major breakthrough of knowing, okay, I'm in school Monday through Thursday, but after school, I'm still going and making my calls. I have to make sure that I have that disciplined aspect and I have my schedule, because I don't want to teeter off and fall off just because I'm 19 years old. I don't want to say, oh, when I graduate college in 4 years, I can start when I'm 23. No way. Like school was not taking over my business, and business was not taking over my school. I mean, I'm the kid that literally was in my math class and I would leave to go negotiate a deal and close it. Like that's how committed I was.
I love
but
it.
It comes back to me being a sport junkie. I mean, I played football, basketball, baseball, like for 10 years growing up my entire kid life. And so you wouldn't see me one weekend with my friends. I would be out tournaments, baseball, travel ball, whatever it was. Like that's kind of what I still feed into my business today. And like what I always try and let people know is that like from my experience and from like what a challenge has been for me is just knowing every day, having that sport mentality mindset, I just think has an edge over anything. Because you know you're down in the grave and you got to get yourself back up. Sometimes it's going to be the support, but it's you that's going to rise you up. And so that was the biggest breakthrough after those couple of deals I did. And then when I did my 4 deals in that first year, that's when it really said, all right, I'm not going to quit school. I'm going to go all in because I'm dedicated, committed to getting that done. So I feel like if I would have quit, I feel like I would have quit on myself and my business. And so I wanted to keep it going. And it never overrode the other. It was actually a constant growth. And it was the best thing because, yeah, it's a piece of paper you get when you graduate, but it really shows, okay, this kid was committed to going to showing up every single day, studying, doing presentations, but also he was still earning money and growing his real estate business on the side. And it wasn't really on the side, but at the same time, it was going together. And so that was probably the biggest breakthrough, was knowing that like you can't give up during hard times just because a deal takes 11 months. Well, how are you going to navigate that to the finish line? You're still a professional. Yeah, I was I was 21 years old when I closed the deal, but there's people depending on you at the same time. And so that never wavered whatsoever for me to really say, you know what, this is how I'm committed every single day. And that's just been my mindset the last 6 years.
Well, so you're with the broker, doing those couple deals. Did you ever go off on your own? Because now now you have a partner. What does that? What was there like an in between phase, or did you go from that broker to partnering where you're at now?
Yeah, so great question. So after 2018, he had they have a really big development company. So I had always thought, okay, maybe I'm going to join their family business because his dad's owner broker, his brother was like project management. So I was like, wow, I think the last 2 years, I might have built up a good resume to say, hey, can I join the business? And so I had to have that uncomfortable conversation at 23 years old and say, hey, I'm still going to finish school. Is there an opportunity for me to be in your business? And he flat out said no.
Okay.
And so at that time, that really did hurt me. I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like my role kept coming down. He goes, you can still be on the team. You can still do what you're going to do, but like, there's just not a spot for you. And I was like, wow, like, what did I do? It's just something I did. And he's like, no, I just don't have, there's just not an opportunity here. But there's an opportunity for you to still maybe work on this side and still bring us deals. And so after that, I kind of set myself aside, went through the holiday season and said, all right, Mom, what do you think? And she goes, well, it's whatever you think is going to be good for you. Remember, it's your life. You're still in school. Figure out if this is what you want to do. And so after the New Year's, I went back and I told him, I'm going to have to go in a different direction. I appreciate the time. And so he understood. It was probably the most uncomfortable thing I've ever had to do because it's like, you're 23 years old. Like, yeah, it may not sound like you're a kid, but you're a kid at 23. Like, you don't have much other than me just going to school, living at home. And to this day, we always still talk about it. He goes, dude, I can't believe like you had the nerve to do that, like in a good way. Like you had that just tenacity that I could see that your growth was not here. Like you had reached your capacity with me, but there was more out there for you. And I said, wow, like looking from his point of view, it was the best thing ever. And so in that time frame, I was like, well, I want to start flipping homes because I was following Adrian. And I tell everybody the story. How'd you meet Adrian? How'd you meet Adrian? So I met him in June of 2018. That's when we officially, like he hired me on his team to start working for him before we became partners. And I was like, well, how do I get a hold of this guy? I've been following him on Instagram. I see him on Facebook. He's flipping homes. He's crushing it. I DM'd him like, dude, cool house. He's like, cool, man. Thank you. Yeah. I was like, awesome. I love your flips. So I was like, I really want to work for you. How can I work for you? He read my message. I'm like, fuck. How do I do it again? Sorry. Don't mean to cuss. And I was like,
it's all good, dude.
Sorry.
Well, no, that's what, I mean, let's be honest, we're in real estate. I mean, things happen so bad. I mean, in real estate, we're cussing all day. Right.
Yeah.
And I love the realness that you bring to the table. And I get it, so you have this story with Adrian as well.
Yeah.
And I just want to let you know that, I mean, the reason why I have you here too, is because the mindset, I mean, the value that you've brought to this company and the things that you've now done and you're going to continue to do. I can't wait to see what next year and the year after. And I just, like I said, I couldn't be more happy that I get to call you our buddy to see where you're going. So yeah, sorry, continue.
Oh, dude, I appreciate that. No. Because it was in that time, I was like, oh my gosh, like what the F? Like, how do I get a hold of this guy? Because I'm seeing him elevate at such a high level. Why can't I work for him or with him potentially one day? So I was like, Nick, think outside the box. That's what Tony Robbins says. Get resourceful. Okay, I typed in Zillow, found his email. I emailed him. I'm like, I want to work for you. I have this much opportunity I can bring to you. I'm in school. And guess what? I bought my first flip in Fontana. Maybe that will help. I kid you not, Aaron. Within like 5 minutes, he was like, when can we meet? And I'm like, all right, let's meet now. So we meet on a Friday. He interviews me. And then a week later, he interviews me again. He's like, let me do one more interview. So I come back the following week. He ends up hiring me. And to this day, he's always like, the reason why I also hired you, not because like I saw something in you, but because you bought your first flip in Fontana. And my first flip was in Fontana as well.
Oh, wow.
Kind of a cool connect. And that was just another big blessing. When I had joined his team in June of 2018, my first flip hit the market July 2018. Ended up losing 10 grand on that deal.
It's all good.
Learning experience ever. I'd always be ashamed to tell that story about my very first flip, but no, it actually just shaped me into the person I was and am today because sometimes you have to go through those losses, and not every deal is going to be a win. As you know, sometimes you win some, you lose some, but it's the learning and the experience behind that of managing it, listing it, negotiating it, doing everything, and helping pay back my stepdad because he lent me money on the deal.
Oh,
and
wow.
so it was a whole catastrophe, but it was the biggest learning experience in that whole thing. So joining his team in 2018, we officially started wholesaling in 2019 because he was like, hey, Nick, I have this deal. Like, we don't want to flip, can you get rid of it? I'm like, what does that mean? He goes, I don't know. We Googled something called wholesale real estate. I'm like, I swear, like, we didn't know what it was. Like, we barely knew Carlos and Sal and Ryan,
Right.
but I'd watch those guys like on YouTube, and Cody Sperber. And so he was like, I was like, yeah, let me reach out to some people. So I called some agents and they're like, yeah, like, how much do you want for it? I'm like, I don't know. Just take it for $350, I think, or something like that. And he was like, we'll take it right now. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. So we made like 10K on the deal. And I'm like,
nice.
We just made 10K. He goes, what? How? And I'm like, I don't know. I just called an agent. They walked the home. They liked the deal. They're all cash. And he was like, did you just wholesale something? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I got more. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. Let's do you want to do something? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, do you want to build a business? I think this could be something, and I was like, yeah, like, why not? And so we started doing that. July 2019, our actual very first business deal was in our backyard in Dana Point. Cracked a 75K deal. And we're like, dude, we just made 75K on one deal. Like, that doesn't even cover like commissions. Like, commissions like 2.5% off of $500,000 house. And so we realized what the opportunity could be in this business. And so in between that was just figuring out, okay, how do we pay ourselves? How do we have enough money for marketing? Where do we get data? Where do we get numbers? Like, it was a whole new thing. It's a whole new language, as you guys knew when you started your game. It's like, you don't know what direction to go, but guess what? You're going to fire from the hip and you're going to figure it out. You're going to throw stuff on the wall and see what sticks. And so we did that. Our first 6 months, I think we made like 100,000 exactly. Of course, we split that 50-50 and we're like, we have no money to go into 2020 now. Like, what do we do? So that whole process in itself was just so cool, but it was kind of the process of how I left my broker and then met Adrian back in 2018.
Awesome. And you guys, so when you guys found that out and you guys found out what wholesaling was, you guys, as far as I'm aware, you guys joined a mastermind to keep learning at a higher level. Because that's actually my next question. I mean, what advice would you give for someone trying to get consistent deal flow? And that's why the questions that I have on the show is the way they are, because I think that's our struggle from a lot of people, from doing, their first deal to a couple deals here and there to just deals at month after month after month. I mean, and I think that goes perfect right into it between your mastermind and, I mean, what would you give somebody advice for?
Yeah, it's simple right there. A lot of us, even ourselves at the time, were afraid to spend to see the return. And so hiring a coach, getting into masterminds is the best thing we could have ever have done, because that personal development and the network and the friends you meet actually push you along farther than you just sitting back in your desk and cold calling every single day. Because we know cold calling is just not going to be the thing of every day to try and get or to earn millions of dollars every single year in this business. Right. I'm sure there's people out there that call from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at night, but I don't want to be the 60-year-old guy still doing what I was doing when I was 20 years old. I want to be more off on my boat, in my private jet, traveling while my business is still running like an oiled machine, like it just doesn't.
Exactly.
So hiring a coach, and as cliche as this sounds, is just, going through that process of like failing and knowing, okay, you know what? You're going to get the inconsistent flow where you start to build a business, but the people that you hire or the masterminds you go into, that's going to be able to trust that process and being able to say, all right, this is what we can grab for data. This is what we grab for numbers. This is how we can really grow the business side of who we need to build and operate to grow the team. And so to build that consistent deal flow is starting with, with your lowest hanging fruit. It's cold calling, is texting, is door knocking. And then from
when you say cold calling, I mean, what does that look like? Is that what your mastermind told you? And what mastermind did you join? And what list were you pulling? I mean, give us the details.
Yeah. So our first mastermind was Carlos and Sal. That was probably towards the end of 2019, like when we had just kind of finished off doing like our 6-figure, like 5-month window. And so when we hired him, like that was their biggest thing was cold calling, texting. And then if you have enough, saved up, try PPC, but the first thing was building a cold call team, so you guys don't be the one cold calling. You're the one outsourcing, hiring VAs. They bring the inbound leads for you and you close those leads. And so that's what we were doing. And so, but then when we get into 2020, that's when COVID hit. And it was the biggest blessing in disguise because we couldn't go to appointments. We couldn't door knock. We couldn't do what we were trying to do before. So building our team, we had like 2 or 3 at the time, and they were just filtering and giving us as many leads as possible. And we were the ones closing them. And then we saw, okay, let's try texting. So we got into that next channel and started doing that. So now we started to see the consistent deal grow every single month from doing 1 to 2 deals to 2 to 4 deals, but consistently now doing, X amount at that time. And we saw that grow because that one person or that one coach at the time believed that cold calling at that time was the best way and the best avenue to get the consistent deal. And it wasn't by us, the ones cold calling every day, because we can't manage everything at once, but it's for them to bring in those inbound leads. And so that's kind of where it started back in, 19.
Okay. So I'm guessing you were doing the cold calling and all that stuff as well, or did you build the team out?
At the time, I was doing the cold call until we built the team out. And then when we got those calls, they were bringing the inbound leads.
And Nick, what does your team look like now?
So right now, we have our sales director, which is APDOG. We have 2 VA closers, so our closing deals over the phone for us. So, and they're awesome people. And then we have 2 lead managers, so they get the leads and they're doing that. And then we have 11 cold callers, and then just myself on the Dispo side, and then my VA. She is on the Dispo team. Like she's filtering out leads and buyers and whatnot, but she's more of an assistant on the side as well. So I think if we add everybody up, we have 11, 13, 15, 16 total people. And then we have our TC, which is also our assistant, Andrea. So team of 17. Yeah.
What do you think would be and this is not even on my list, but what do you think would be the first hire of any real estate? Because what I've seen is that a retail team, a wholesale team, flipping team, they all kind of have the same team members. What would you say that would be the best first hire?
That's a great question, because I feel like sometimes some areas need to be filled than others. And at one point it might be a TC because, you have your sales team and the Dispo team running the TC. And that's kind of how it was actually. And so we realized sometimes at our point, it was a TC that we needed to hire because we had the sales team at the time, which was myself and Adrian. But then as we grew that out, but if someone's just starting out, I say if you were to start somewhere on a pathway, get your sales team ramping up. That's the way to bring in dials, is the way to bring in consistent deal flow, is who's closing the deals for you. Because to figure out if you're going to wholesale, in this example, you can dispo it, you can find a buyer, but to produce those outcomes, you have to start from ground zero, which is hiring a sales team. So that's kind of where I'd start. But for us, it was a TC problem. Crazy enough.
I love that. That's actually my answer. A TC, 100%.
Yeah.
Nick, what kind of marketing? Because I know you guys you mentioned the cold callers. What kind of marketing are you doing currently to get your consistent deal flow?
So right now we have cold call, we have texting, we have PPC, and referrals is major for us right now.
I remember when we hung out, you said referrals was a big one. And when you say referrals, what do you mean?
So we're part of we have a mastermind that Adrian started called the Evo Mastermind, and he has like 200 agents. And so not only when they're pitching listings, but they're pitching wholesale, they're pitching cash offer deals. And so when they get those deals, we're the ones in-house helping them sell the deals. And then we have people, through social media, even people out of state, because we do out of state as well, that need help selling deals. And so the referrals have been major for us this year on being able to help them attack. I think we've done like 31 like referral deals this year.
Oh, wow.
Agents, wholesalers, people out of state, and I think some friends and family as well.
That's awesome. Well, what all markets are you in now?
So right now we tailored back. We were in like Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia. So right now we're just strictly California, Oklahoma, North Carolina, and Austin, Texas.
Awesome. And I know the reason I say that too is I know you took the lead on getting just outside of Southern California.
Yep.
And so awesome. And that's
Yeah.
kind of where we at too. And it was actually I always had this mentality to go deeper and not wider,
Yep.
right? So I wanted to stay in Southern California, but my butt got kicked with this when the market shifted.
Mm-hmm.
The West Coast got hit the hardest. And so I decided, I said, all right, well, let's go test out some different markets. And it's been working because what we've been seeing is that, properties, the $200,000-$300,000 range are still moving fast.
And yeah, it's crazy.
So Nick, let me ask you this. What is your number one struggle right now in business?
Number one struggle right now in business, I would say I'll go from a personal side point and a business standpoint. I think
For sure.
is on the business side, I would say ramping up sales team, because
Yeah.
we have consistent months, our team's building and growing, but that's also a struggle is really getting them trained up and building that whole sales process because it's not an overnight thing. You can't just hire someone day one and they're a Jedi day two. So the struggle is being able to build that consistent sales training, making sure that they're in the right culture, the right environment to close leads and to have that confidence. So I think that's always a struggle that we have, but it's always a work in progress. I believe in the whip, knowing that not everything's going to be a perfect, but you're always going to have to call audibles, make switches, make moves. That's going to build your sales team, your Dispo team, and everything around itself. And I'd say on a personal side, because I think everyone likes to probably know there's always struggles internally as well. For me, it's like the fear of failing. I always had that fear, like, okay, that chip's on my shoulder. I just don't want to get knocked out, and knowing that, okay, I'm not going to get back up. I'm going to always know that I don't want to be the one behind the gun. I want to be in front of the opportunity, and knowing that I don't want to see that fear in front of me or look behind that rearview mirror and say, I could have, would have, should have. It's like, I'm just looking forward at what's to come. And, if you get hit, get back up. And that's always been like a weird struggle of mine, but internally, I know that will never beat me down because of like that sports mentality and just think of like, what's a Tom Brady going to do? What's a Michael Jordan going to do? Albert Pujols, all of these people like that are accolades that you look up to. And like from a distance, like they have much of an impact on you than yourself because they see something in themselves that's like, why can't you see the same? We don't want to have that fear of like the what ifs. It's like, it's not the what if, it's like, I'm going to create that opportunity.
No, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And I think we're completely on the same page. I think our struggle right now is the sales team, and then my fear is personally is because I don't know. It doesn't sound like you've been in a 9 to 5, maybe younger, but my fear is going back to a 9 to 5. I would never. I'll do anything to not go back to a 9 to 5. I like our freedom that real estate has given us.
Yep.
Let me ask you this, Nick. What are your strategies to get through this recession and coming out even better on the other side? Because we're all gonna go through it, and I know we're all gonna make it through it. But what's your plans to get through it?
Are you ready?
Let's hear it.
Dispo.
And
yeah.
Perfect. We'll break that down for us. I mean, so you said Dispo because I know you run Dispo for your company. Yeah. What are your guys' top strategies for Dispo right now?
Dude, right now, like I was explaining earlier before we got on the podcast, is relationships. This is all about building relationships with all these agents, your coaches, your buyers, your investors, even your first-time investors, or even people that want to just get in this business. What I have been saying to myself is have that helping hand. Because that helping hand and that servant mindset creates those relationships because they're going to come to you for help, whether it may be now, down the road, or in the future, because everyone needs help, And Dispo, I feel like right now is more of a relationship standpoint than a transactional standpoint because I can't even tell you I can count on my fingers and then some buyers chose to just buy deals from us because of our friendship, because they just want to get another deal. Like if it was just some other Joe Schmo, because they told me I would not want to buy the deal. I bought it because I trust you. I want to work with you. You guys are awesome. You know, Andrea makes me feel nice and warm and fuzzy when I speak with her. I don't have to feel nervous when I get a call from her or text from her or your escrow company. Like, that's the way you build a business. A book of business is by that true friendship and relationships, you know, because I don't look at them as just another investor. Great, I got to call, you know, so-and-so. I got to reach out to them. It's like, I'm excited because when you get a call from them, it's like, I'm expecting always good news and they're going to always pull through for me. And I remember I've had like two of my strong, you know, investor friends to this day. They're always like, dude, like there's like probably 40 some deals I bought in the last couple of years. I did not need to buy, but I bought because of our relationship. And so if I could compound that over the next 24, 48, even the next 10 plus years in this business or more, dude, that's going to go a long way versus me just being, all right, when's the next $10,000 deal? When's the next six-figure check going to come? You know, figuring out, okay, I don't care about the buyer. I don't care about the seller. I just care about getting that check. That's the easiest ticket for you to get out of this game. And unfortunately, we're in this business where that's all people think about. They don't care. They just care about that bottom line. What is XX LLC going to make? But forget about the seller, forget about the buyer. You know, I'm not going to tell them the roof's caving in if they're going to buy sight unseen, you know. And the strategy really behind that all is just having deeper conversations and getting to know them more as people. Sometimes I just break up the conversation and break their state. Like, hey, how's your day been? Wait, you were just talking about the property? Yeah, how's your day been? Just like you would with the seller. You want to still build that interaction because I always say we're human beings. You know, they're not just numbers and investors just trying to figure out a dollar for dollar bill. They're really trying to figure out, okay, is this guy genuine or is he just another just Joe Schmo just trying to sell me a stupid deal? It's like, no, I want to work with you. You're an agent. I'm a wholesaler, but I'm also an investor too, but we wholesale more than we are buying. How can we build a relationship? How can your buyers work with us? How can you earn an extra commission check out of thin air? How can we build that? And so that's been a big strategy of mine, is just really just going down the list and going one by one. And it's not like you're hopping on Mojo is what people think to get a deal. It's you're going one by one. You're trying to contact every single LLC, personal buyer that buys in the area and build that relationship.
That's incredible advice and a gold nugget. I'm glad you shared that with us, and we're gonna be using that as well. I'm putting that right now in my pocket and talking to the team, because a lot of people. I'm glad you expounded on that, because a lot of us, and I hear it all the time, relationships. But you right now just gave a more in depth on how to build those relationships by asking how's your day, by going one by one. I love it, Nick. Thanks for sharing that. Nick, let me ask you this. What have you read or listened to that inspired you recently?
Recently, well, we had a 2-day mastermind with one of our coaches, and so he gave us a book to read. It's called EOS by the guy's name, EOS by Gino Wickman. So it's the entrepreneurial operating system. So sometimes you have to slow down to speed back up, and that is really building the internal business or the bloodline of your business. And so breaking it down one by one, it's a quick read. I think it's like a 2-hour Audible. I finished it literally on like my car ride back and forth. And it was just so good. And that was the one I just read recently. And in other books, I just read $100 Million Offer by Alex Ramosi. It's a genius. And then I read this book probably 3-4 times a year because it's like my book I sleep with. It's Relentless by Tim Grover.
Okay.
So if you're massive in sports and you want to get behind in the breakdown of how like Tim Grover trained Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade, Kobe Bryant, like, and how he got into their minds and their psychology of how they created what they created over the last decade, it's an amazing book. And that's like a book I read nonstop because I'm like the highlight guy in that book because it brings so much more out that you can feed back into your business. And so those are the top 3 books I've read in the last few months.
Awesome. Well, and one thing, the $100 Million Offer, I think the best thing I took from that book was in the very beginning where it said, listen and read.
Yes.
Ever since I read that book and I listened and read that book, I've been doing that with all my books, listening and reading, because you're able to stop, highlight, underline, meditate on what you just listened to. And you're able to also kind of, like I say, go through with it, and you're able to retain, I think, a lot more, and also get through more material quicker.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Nick, let me ask you this. What is one myth about real estate that you would like to debunk right now?
One myth I'd like to debunk about real estate. Wow. I've had people say real estate's a liability, not an asset. And I'm here to break that. It's not. Like real estate and real estate, you can't diversify. I think in one transaction, there's like 34, 35 positions. 35 people get paid on one deal. It probably a little bit more now because you have assistants and extra TCs. But still, you can diversify so much in this business, and it's somehow people don't believe that you can and create that generational wealth. Why do you think most millionaires, billionaires invest in real estate, invest in opportunities like that? Because everything is backed by real estate. You have the people that stocks and whatnot, but that is, I would say, it's a myth. Is real estate for sure you can diversify. Real estate's an asset, not a liability.
Absolutely, 100%. Another thing I love about real estate too is that there's so many avenues to make money. But I think the one thing that we see people struggle with is that they don't necessarily pick one thing to start, right? What I would say is if you get into real estate, pick one thing, perfect it, and then you can start diversifying. As you already know, our first thing was wholesale. And now we're able to diversify. We're able to sit there with the seller, like we talked about earlier, and say, hey, these are the options we have for you. So, Nick, I just can't thank you enough for being on here and adding this value. Please go bug Nick, give him some more deals to move. Nick is a rock star, an incredible person to Dispo deals, let alone he would love to develop an amazing relationship with you. I know Nick is based out of Southern California, but he's also doing transactions across the nation. So hit him up. Nick, where can our listeners find you online?
So if you want to find me, Instagram, it's Nick Ramirez with 2 Ks. TikTok, same thing, Nick Ramirez 2 Ks, and then hit me up on Facebook. Same name.
Nick, you're going places. You're going to explode here soon. And like I said, I'm glad I was able to have you on the show to watch you explode. So, again, hit him up, and hey, we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.